keep going from the previous video there. We have these two and not three and the two and the not two. Something else coming back up to the top here when we're talking about strings, this is going to be something that's going to kind of going to trip us up a little bit, okay? If you do print and then we put in quotations the number 2 and we want to see if that equals 2, all right? So let's do it both ways here. And I'm going to comment everything else out up above here just for a second so that we know this is the only thing that's going to print out to the console. What do you expect for this first one? I'm going to go ahead and tell you this second one is definitely going to be true. All right, let's run our code. And that first one is false. And the reason is because this is a string, this is an integer. They are not the same thing, okay? So let us create a new file to go over this concept of, I'm going to call it casting.py, okay? And we need to define the scary word here. Casting equals changing a variable's data type without changing the variable itself. Okay, that maybe sounds a little bit confusing. Let me explain. If we had something like this, we'll call it a string as number. Actually, that's backwards. I'm going to say a number as string, okay? And we do what we did before. We have the number 2 in quotations mark, all right? This is a string. But we know we know that it's really a number, and we want to add it or multiply it to something else, or we want to compare it to something else, right? So we want to do this. We want to do a number as string plus 2. This is going to break, right? Visual Studio Code doesn't know it, but if we hop over here, okay, and we're going to run Python 3 against our casting.py, so our new file, you run that, sure enough, right? Just like before, I can't concatenate a string to an integer. It has to be 2 strings. If you did it the other way around, remember, if you do 2 plus, it'll give us that other error because it's going to start off with, hey, this is supposed to be an addition, right? And I can't I can't do that. So if you want to convert this, you know it's a number deep down, right? In your code somewhere, you've collected it and you know that it is a number. We have another command that we can run, and that is the int command, which looks like that. Okay, and it has parentheses just like print, just like if, right? Just like a bunch of the commands we've run. Whatever we put inside of the parentheses, it is going to try and cast it to that variable type. So whatever this is, it's going to try and turn it into an integer, and then this will work. So if I save this, let's print this off like that. So we are going to print, and we haven't done this before, but we're doing sort of 2 commands at once. We're going to print. What do you want me to print? Well, we've got a whole thing in here. I want you to convert whatever is inside the parentheses to an integer, this thing, and then I want you to add 2 to it. All right, so if we save that, clear this out, and run it, we get 4. Whereas before we casted it, it did just the opposite, okay? We could do the same thing the other way around, where instead of, we're going to print a number as string, and we do plus 2. Well, again, this is not going to work, right? Because this is a string right here. This is going to try and concatenate an integer, which you can't do. There is an str command that looks like that. We're going to try and convert whatever this is into a string, which means this is a string and this is a string. So we can concatenate them together, and we're gonna end up with 2, or it's gonna look like 22. So let's run that code quick. There we go. That converted both of them to integers, or rather 1 to an integer and then added to an integer. This one converted 1 to a string and then smashed them together. Okay. Again, this process is called casting. The other thing that we can do, if for some reason you need it to be a float, if we took 3, we can cast it to a float by doing that, okay? This is going to take this and, again, cast it, right? It's a command because we've got these parentheses. What we put in the parentheses is what it's going to try and run this on. We come over here, run our code, and it drops a .0 at the end because a float has to have a decimal point, okay? So why is this important? Well, if I do this, if I do name equals, actually let's do fave number equals input, and we'll say what is your favorite number. All right. The answer to this question should be a number, right? Let us print off the type. So remember, this is another command that we've run. So a command takes those parentheses. We're going to put in their favorite number. So what we're asking line 9 to do here, take favorite number, find out what data type it is, and print it off. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the terminal. We're going to run our code. What's your favorite number? I'm feeling like my favorite number is 11 right now. Okay, it is a string. I told you this a long time ago, but anytime you run input, it doesn't make any difference what the user puts in. It will always be a string. So this is a case where we can assume, maybe not 100%, but we're going to assume that they enter a number. We can always do checks. Don't worry about that. That's later on. We can cast it to an integer. So if we wanted to do something like this, fave number 3 equals, we'll take their favorite number and we'll add 3 to it. This is going to fail, right? Because this is a string and we can't put a string and an integer together, right? I'll go ahead and prove it to you. 3, right? Fail, right? You can't concatenate. What we can do is convert this to an integer because this came from input up here, and now we will be able to add them together, and voila, it doesn't error. It still gives us a type because we still have that line in there. Okay, that is the basics of casting. Whenever you want to convert one data type to another, we have these available. They are available for the other data types as well. We'll get to those down the road.